Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Zach Morton from First Presbyterian Church.
And I'm Reverend Jenny Williams from Avery United Methodist Church.
And we wanted to take a few minutes in response to the so many events of this past week that have involved, once again, incidents of quite obvious racial bias in our country and the mixed bag that has brought on so many levels, from the justice that so many celebrated being served in the Derek Chauvin trial, although that will never bring George Floyd back, to the right on the heels of that, we see another young person, black person in a community, gunned down by police, and that's repeated itself too many times recently, and so we're just in a state of lament, like, constantly. And we just wanted to talk about it because it was so prescient on everybody's minds this week. I know for me, I think a lot about how this should be a topic that the church is involved in dramatically, because when we think about the person that we follow, who we're named after, the person of Jesus is a person who, if you think about that Easter week, was unjustly profiled and arrested and incarcerated and received an unfair trial and was executed in plain view of the people, like on the streets, by state authorities. And so our founding principle story is wrapped up in the stories of persons of color and what their experience is in so many communities across our country.
And the person that we follow is a person with brown skin. And the church in America has for a long time pretended that that hasn't been the case. We've got all sorts of depictions all around us in predominantly white churches of Jesus with fair skin, or even blonde hair and blue eyes. And so the church has, in so many ways, been part of the problem of the systems that lead us to this point, and have been treating people of color not like people for over 400 years. I know in our own congregation for a long, long time, we've had that famous picture of Jesus hanging, that the white Jesus, and we just took it down this past year because we're on a journey and we want to be doing better. We have a relative of that painter in our congregation, and we all understood the importance of taking that down, and yet the drop in the bucket that act is. So we wanted to talk with you all about steps that we can all take to be part of crafting solutions, overturning, as Jesus calls us to do, as his mother sang about, overturning the systems of the world and exalting those whom the world deems lowly, and dethroning those whom the world elevates. So we've got some suggestions for you, because we know white folks are increasingly wanting to help and yet don't know where to turn. So we're going to talk to you about some things that you can be involved in, particularly some local things. So Zach, I think you wanted to talk about one.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a community group that both Jenny and I have been involved in, and it's called Dismantling Racism Together. That's an online group that has monthly meetings. A big primary part of that group is education and educating each other. And what's great about that is we're getting ready to launch some book and study groups that's meant for white folks to educate other white folks about white supremacy, racial bias, and all the different intersections of that in our culture today. And that education is an important first step. It is only the first step, but it is an important first step. So if you find yourself wanting to get more educated, please take that step and pay attention over the coming months as we launch those groups. And also, another purpose of that group is to listen to the voices and initiatives and work that persons of color in our own community of Morgantown are engaged in, and to lend our voices, lend our energies, lend our resources to what they're doing and help them advocate for things that will better our community with things like what's happening in our community right now is directly impacted by what's going on other places. We're working on a citizens police review board right now in Morgantown, and you can get involved in that. When the call goes out for folks to get involved, please pay attention. Jenny and I will spread the word and tell you how you can get involved. We just need people's presence and support and voices lended to initiatives like that in our community.
That initiative grew out largely out of our local branch of the NAACP, so the Morgantown Kingwood branch. And I would just really encourage folks to join that branch. It's a wonderful group of people. I've only been part of it for about a year. It's folks of color and white folks all in the group working on leadership together. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to sort of sit and listen and take my own personal cues from leaders of color in our community. So if you're looking for information about that, you can go to their website, just search Morgantown Kingwood NAACP. Also on that website, you'll see the 9 subcommittees of this branch doing incredible work throughout our community. Healthcare, education, with legal issues, with legislative, legislative tracking. Sorry about that. They're just amazing subcommittees. And so when you join, your dues are helpful towards those, all those efforts in the community. And there are many, many ways to get involved. So I just really want to encourage people, if you do nothing else, to join the NAACP and listen, learn, and follow.
And in many ways, there are things that we can do that perhaps we don't think about. We're not really trained to be activists or advocates. We think that that's a radical thing, but it's really not. It's the basic organizing function of a democracy, and we're being good citizens whenever we back up folks that we see are being treated unjustly, unfairly, inhumanely. In our country. And the only way that things are going to change is if enough of us insist that they change. And other small things that we can do are simply to forge friendships and relationships in our own community and among your own friend circles, and make sure persons of color who are within your own circles, maybe your neighborhood associations or where you work, or anything that you're involved in, make sure that folks who are persons of color, that their voices and opinions are heard and put right in the middle of everything, just as anyone else's opinions are. It's our job to advocate and to make sure that that's happening across our society in 1,000 different little ways. It's super important. It's something that we probably don't think about a lot, but that is absolutely something that we can do.
We know it's really hard in lots of communities in states like ours, and probably in other places where white people don't have friends of color. And so we would both caution against just sort of, approaching someone with the purpose of becoming their friend and being in relationship. And so you might say, well, what could I do? And if you're on social media, there's lots of great folks that you can follow to start listening to the points of view of people of color. And I'll just drop a few names of folks that I like to follow on their social media accounts. One is No White Saviors, is a great group. Also, Black Liturgies is another good one. Christina Cleveland is a woman to listen to. And if you'd like to check out the work of either Reverend Dr. Yvette Flunder or Reverend Dr. William Barber. And Dr. Barber has connections to West Virginia that you might want to look into in his work with the Poor People's Campaign. So it's really, really important to be listening to voices of people of color, to listen, and for white people to kind of shut up for a while and just listen. Sometimes our urge is to disagree and jump on a conversation, and really think one of the first steps is immersion into a world that's different from the one that we've grown up in. So if you want other recommendations, you're welcome to contact either of us about people who to follow on social media, people who to read. But as Zach said, these are just kind of initial steps of the work that we have to do. They're a good start, and lots of people are looking for a start. So that's who we wanted to talk to today.
Yeah, and this is unfortunately a problem that's grown in our country and been rooted here for centuries, for generations, and the church has not done a good job speaking out against it. And so it's our job to understand that we have to actively work against these forces and ideologies of white supremacy and racial bias in all its forms, both explicit and implicit. And we have to commit to doing that work our entire lives, because it's going to take that long and probably longer. But that doesn't mean that we don't commit ourselves to doing it. That's what Christ calls us to do. So
we thank you for watching today, and encourage you to contact us through social media, through our websites. If you have any questions, want to have a conversation, want some more recommendations. Thanks for watching today.